That's the guy who's at the center of everything. And I was talking to someone a while back before I really knew you all that well, and I was like, I think Marc Ellinger has the job everyone in law school wants to have. You either want to be you or like Matlock.
I don't want to be Matlock.
No,
for sure.
I would think that
I wouldn't look good like Kathy Bates in the new one. It's just not the same as the old one.
Every time I ask you what you're up to, it's always something cool and kind of fun, and the kind of thing I think they should have you recruit for law school. I think that might be the move.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that'd turn off a whole bunch of people, particularly the law professors.
I can't have you on here without asking, how's Miss Stephanie doing? Your law partner.
Doing great.
What's she up to today?
She's working.
Well, good. Yeah, well, somebody. Yeah.
You know, because I'm over here doing
He's got it figured out. He's sitting there talking with me and Aaron, and 70's buying in the store. All right. When I think of you, I think of the person who is right at the center of almost all these ballot questions. When I think of public interest law, the candidates advising them, you are at the center of probably advising legally almost every major Republican in this state. I thought, if you don't mind, let's just go down the list of the four things that are. I mean, there's probably more than four, but let's just talk about the four things that are out there that are likely.
Okay.
Starting with the abortion IP, the legislature put it on. I thought it was very thoughtfully done. I think there's a couple key things that are helpful. They put the trans stuff in there, which, let me just ask you, I don't know if you just said up or down, abortion's banned or totally legal in this state. I think if you're asked that stark question, I think the pro-life cause would have a hard time winning that.
Absolutely. I think the only way abortion politically passes as a stand up and down question is, something like 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark. Everybody debates 12 to 15. Nobody knows the exact number. I've seen polling that goes on all over
some
it.
exceptions. Rape, incest, life of the mother.
And when you get below 12 weeks, it starts to go underwater. And when you get over 15 weeks, it's basically unlimited.
Abortion in this town, Aaron, everyone talks about endlessly, obsessively, and insanely. I think there's a lot of regular folks that do not talk about abortion at the dinner table, and they particularly don't enjoy other people talking about it either. I think the gut of a Missourian's about where you're saying. They generally don't like it. It's not a good thing. I watch some of the crazies on the pro-choice side be like, oh, abortion's normal. Nah, abortion's not health care. Abortion's not normal. I think to a regular Missourian, abortion is a sad, no matter how you got there or why, I think it's viewed as kind of a sad thing. But I think sometimes we're on the other side, the pro-life people accuse women of being really cavalier about it. And I don't think women are cavalier about it by and large. I think it's kind of a off-putting subject to most folks. I think most of us consider themselves pro-life, but if you really ask them the follow-up questions, they have a lot of asterisks on being pro-life. You've been around this issue. Where do you think folks are?
Yeah. Grew up Catholic, in Jefferson City, going to Catholic school and a Catholic university. So this was discussed at the dinner table when I was growing up.
You understand guilt?
Yeah, I do. You know this.
Yes.
I talk about this often. So I think you're right. I think it's I think the messaging that worked on the last campaign is what a personal decision this is. And the problem that the pro-life movement has, I think, in the messaging on it is 50% of the population is women, and they know that pregnancy is complicated. And so the point that you get to on the up and down question is exactly what you hit on, is how many asterisks are there for most people? And when half of your, the audience voting on it or the voting population on it is women, they know that there's actually a lot of asterisks there that you need. So I think that's what you run into.
If you ask someone, total abortion access or none, they would say I'm pro-life. If they vote privately, I think they would vote pro-choice. But that's where I think that, and credit Missouri Right to Life and the folks that put this together, I thought this was thoughtfully done. I thought they gave exceptions. They moved it to what is the weeks? Are you? I should ask on all these. Are you on this case?
I am not involved in the litigation on the Amendment 3.
Okay.
So.
But I thought it was smart how they brought in the trans stuff. I think that will produce some results. And of the four we're going to talk about, I actually think probably this one has it's not easy, but they have a legitimate chance to win this.
Yeah, I think the new ballot language helps them. I mean, it's not as helpful as I guess
that. You're in this hip deep. How much does ballot language matter?
It makes actually a difference to people who show up to vote. we have some early voting in the state. It's not a lot there, but there's some early voting in the state, and
I think that's going to be more every cycle, though.
absolutely. I mean, I think it's and look, as Republicans, we should embrace early
I
voting.
agree.
It's a positive for us. It's way more
Certainly.
positive for us than it is for Democrats.
We're more organized and better funded.
Yep.
That early voting should yield to the people who are more organized and better funded.
And and it goes back to something you said earlier, which is most people don't think about it, and most people don't. Abortion's not a dinner table conversation. So there's still a segment of folks that show up to the polling place and read the ballot titles to decide how they vote.
What do you think that? So I'll be honest with you. I have never read anything more than the headline of something. Now, maybe it's because most of my life I've been in and around the news business, so I'm more familiar. I'm probably a bad test case. I have a hard time believing folks they had to wait in line, they're busy, they got to get back to work or get their kids home or whatever. They said after they voted for president and senator and all that other stuff, county clerk, they get down there to the end. I wonder what percentage of voters actually read all that stuff.
Well, there's persistence through the ballot. How far do you get bleed off where people just give up? There are people who show up to vote in a presidential race is the best example because they'll vote for president.
Trump and gone.
And maybe they'll vote for the governor. Maybe. I mean, you see drop off in that vote
In a rural
percentage.
county, I do think you're going to go down. If there's a contested race, commissioners and sheriffs do drive turnout. If there's a problem in the county, when you were in the county, the sheriff always gets a lot of attention. I think in a rural county, you're going to vote for Trump. You might hopscotch a few more. You're going to go vote for your sheriff or the guy running against him. I think people do kind of find their hot spots. But the ballot language is at the bottom. Yeah. I just wonder how much vigor and stamina people have to go read about an issue there after they've done all the other voting. Then nobody comes out to vote for these things.
I mean, I think if you look at the last couple of election cycles, the number of people who voted in the top line race is more than voted on the ballot measures, but not by an enormous percentage. So, you're talking about a 1 or 2% bleed off. That means most people are persistently going through the ballot. And, if you come in fully aware, I mean, it's kind of hard with some of these issues, abortion in particular, because of how much money was spent on it last time around. You kind of had to be in a dead zone to not know something about the measure and not know that it was going to be on the ballot. But I think that the ballot title still carries some weight with people, and I think it carries some weight because they hear the proponent say, it's the greatest thing ever. They hear the opponent say it's the end of civilization as we know it, and then they read the ballot title. And I think there's a percentage of people who look at that ballot title and say, okay, I'm okay with that, or I don't know, I don't like that.
There's a ballot title, then there's the other explanation, right?
Yeah, so
to me the title's very important.
On the ballot, you'll see a ballot title. We call it the official ballot title. There's a summary statement. That's what the Secretary of State writes. It's 100 words. And there's a fiscal note summary, which the auditor writes, which is, says what the fiscal impact is. That's what you see on the ballot.
And then there's fair ballot.
And then there's the fair ballot language. And then there's everywhere it's posted, too. So there's a copy posted in every polling place.
What did you think of the new law that takes some of the judges out of writing the ballot language?
It's a really interesting law.
I mean, you actually deal with these things. I mean, you've multiple times been in court arguing over this language. What do you think of the new way they're going to try and do this?
It vests a lot more power in the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State can put out a ballot title that is very much politically in his favor, so to speak. And he did. And then the opponents can go to court. And in the past, that was the end of the game. You went to court and a judge wrote your ballot title. Now, if the judge finds there's a problem, he sends it back to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State gets to tinker with it and bring it back. And if the judge doesn't like that, he can do it again. And it's up to 3 times it can go back to the Secretary of State before the court writes it. Okay, and I think that's probably a good thing.
After the 3rd time, the court can still write it.
After the 3rd time, if the court rejects it, then the court can write it.
And
I kind of like that.
They accepted Secretary Hoskins on this last one.
Yeah.
I do think, I'm sure Judge Green did it because he had problems with it. The ballot language was a little, I actually don't, I thought the first one that Denny did might have been a little silly. And I'm not sure it always helps you if it's like so over the top. I think folks, if they do read that, they're like, oh, this seems, what's this? You're telling me what you think. I thought Judge Green, if nothing else, to get the precedent set up in a positive way, sending it back once was good.
Right.
Now, I have no idea what he changed it to or whatever, but I doubt there was fundamental changes. I just thought it was good to establish I'm going to shoot it back.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that set a good precedent. I mean, I think that, to a great extent, that came out of what happened with Amendment 3, where Amendment 3 went to the Secretary of State, it was Jay Ashcroft at the time, and, he wrote a very politically one-sided ballot title.
I thought it was almost silly.
And had he been just dialed back a little bit, that thing passes in a court under the standard, but he didn't. And then the court rewrote it, and the court's rewrite made it much more likely to pass because it made it sound much more palatable to the average person.
Oh, I thought Jay's was a little silly. The courts was very biased. They wanted you to vote pro-choice. I mean, there's no question.
This also goes back a little bit to Clean Missouri, though, where I think progressives may have given a little too much of the playbook and showed their hand a little bit too much on how to get one of these done. Yeah. And I think that I think that there's a lot of regrets on how Clean was handled that have trickled down to some of these issues.
How stunningly hilarious is it to have Democrats sit in here and complain about ballot candy?
Not to quote my girl again, but karma.
Yeah.
It's called karma.
And I mean, the ballot candy.
Who'd she quote?
Taylor.
Oh, I thought you were quoting Stephanie for a second. I'm like, what?
Her daughter.
Well, Stephanie would probably agree with that quote.
I would tend to agree with that, yeah.
I definitely think it is so richly hilarious to me to have folks come in here and say, well, ballot candy's out. I'm like, well, you guys kind of you're the modern innovators of ballot candy. If you think it's bad, I'm not sure why or how.
Yeah, I mean, they created it. I think to a certain extent, ballot candy's been around
for a long time. The court made a mistake, though. I agree. All these things. I mean, the reason that people seek you out and hire you to go argue in these big buildings is because it's a very fluid situation. It's technical, it's challenging, it's complex. But I do think the Clean Missouri thing, I don't know what the law said. I would have no idea. I mostly break them. But I do.
That's why you need lawyers.
Yeah, there you go. From a common sense standpoint, I thought the court made a mistake. I think it's bad public policy. Now, I don't know. They may have ruled on the legality of it. I have no clue. But it's bad public policy. If you want to ask the voters of the state a question, ask them a question. Don't ask them 7. Ask them a question. And whatever they want to do, voters generally get it right over time. I think they made a bad decision there.
So, constitutional amendments in the old days, and I mean going way back in the old days, were very simple, short amendments. They didn't have a lot of words. They were a paragraph. The first really big constitutional amendment to go in the Constitution was the judicial article when it was rewritten, and it's enormous. I mean, it was almost in the entirety of the Constitution became the judicial article by number of words. The Hancock Amendment, which was probably the next big amendment to come in, is actually relatively short if you read it. Now it's 8 or 9 sections, but it's not really, really long. The gaming amendment that was passed, that allowed slot machines, is 2 sentences. I mean, you're not talking about enormously long ballots.
But they're getting bigger and bigger.
But they've consistently got bigger and bigger. And, the Clean Missouri had its own problems. It was an unconstitutional amendment to start with because it had multiple subjects. The courts took a pass on that.
It clearly had multiple subjects.
And the courts took a pass on that, and they read that multiple subject concept so broadly that you can drive a truck through it.
But it's
and
not
everybody
it's not
does.
A thing then.
Yeah.
It's essentially like do whatever you want. And I respect your profession. I readily acknowledge I am not in it. I do think the state would have been better if they would have said, "Oh yeah, that's too much, guys. Come on now. You're clearly doing at least 2 different things here." And a little bit with Amendment 3 now, you're definitely bringing trans stuff into abortion. I mean, obviously, by definition, if you're going to be trans, you're already born. So these are different things. But I don't see how it's certainly not as egregious as Clean Missouri was.
No, Clean Missouri was one of the most egregious examples. In my lifetime, it's probably the most egregious example that went to court and survived.
But I tip my hat. I mean, you got to play your hand.
Yeah.
Good for them. I get what they were trying to do. And that was a good way to go about it. And so, but that's where somebody should say, no, we're not doing that.
And everybody learned from it. I mean, you got Cleaner Missouri, which was the legislative version of Clean Missouri that did the exact same thing. I mean,
and I had Republicans sit here and say, oh, you can't, this is awful, this is ballot candy. And then they come back with Cleaner Missouri, and I'm like, well, I thought you said. it is kind of funny in these days when the coach calls a play, they all just fall in line.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the new model. And until a court says it's not, or there's a constitutional amendment that changes something, that's the new model. That's what we're going to see. We're also going to see these long constitutional amendments.
Sure.
Because, I mean, nobody cares if it's 47 pages long anymore. They just care what the...
Or we have substantive debate and compromise.
Well, that'd be so. As far as Amendment 3, essentially you're offering exceptions. You're making abortion much harder to get in the state, but you're offering some exceptions, 12 weeks or whatever it is. Is that in this?
I think I have to go back and look. I think is it 6 weeks? It's a earlier number.
6 is pretty
and
compact.
it's with I think it's pre 6 weeks. Don't hold me to that. But I think it's pre something, and then afterwards, and
With some exceptions.
Yeah, and there are some exceptions. I mean, it's a much more stringent measure than what we have right now. We effectively have unlimited abortions in Missouri right now.
There's no restriction on abortion.
You can pull the abortion ban up to the middle school.
And I think
They
the
can't
judge
say
that
anything.
wrote the ballot language, that was their intention, and that's what they got. You're a very liberal judge, and we're very liberal as conservative as Denny is. This judge was just as liberal. So the trans stuff I think helps. Let's break it down. Chances of Amendment 3 passing.
50-50.
What do you think?
I'm with him. I think it depends on what the pro-life coalition can put together, because we've talked about this before. It's just so much easier to get a no, and the no's are going to spend money. So,
And I would say the pro-life coalition this time around, as opposed to in opposition to Amendment 3, this time around they're much more unified. They seem to be doing a much better job of trying to speak as one and act as one. And against Amendment 3,
Oh,
it
they all
seemed
hated
very
each other.
disjointed, and
They had the curse in politics. They'd won.
Yeah.
And it cursed them.
Yeah.
I in this town, it's popular to kick Missouri right to life. I think they deserve some credit. I could have seen them coming back with a strictly no abortion ever, what the law used to be. And they didn't. They came back with something much more intelligent that actually has a chance to pass. I think if you'd have said, let's bring the 2018 law back, that would really have very little chance to pass. I think the fact that they have something reasonable on the ballot has drawn. I mean, could you have a better treasurer for your campaign than the first lady? If it's better than having the governor.
I mean,
he's going to be a lot more committed now.
It shows how invested the governor is in the issue, and I think that helps a lot. I mean, the governor's popular. I think this helps him.
It helps unify.
Exactly, and I think that's what you've seen is there's much more of a unity against for this amendment than there was against the last one.
And they're not fighting all the time. I mean, there are some senators that spoke up at the end of the session about Missouri Right to Life, but overall, the pro-life community used to be the most nasty group of people that just screamed at each other all the time. You don't see that right now. You do see a common purpose. I do think the governor being involved helps that, but credit Missouri Right to Life. They've come up with something that I think, I'm with you, 50-50. I do think there's a little bit of false confidence on the pro-life side. I think when they all really came together, they narrowed that margin quickly, but they were narrowing it to get a no.
Yeah.
You've been involved in these for 25 years. Have you seen a time when the no side had more money that they lost?
Boy, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I mean,
systematically in Missouri, the system is built to produce a no. If you try to talk folks into voting no, they're usually much easier to be talked into voting no. Abortion is such an odd issue in our state. Of all these, if the no side has the most money, I like their chances. But this is such a unique issue. I'm 50-50 with you.
and I think it depends upon what the margin is. I mean, I think we assume that the no side will have more money. I think that's a logical assumption based on what happened, in the last cycle. But will they have 10 times the money or 2 times the money? And is that 30 million to 3 million, or is it 30 million to 15 million, or is it 6 million to 3 million? Those numbers give you enormous differences.
What if it's that?
I typically, on a normal issue, I would say 3-1. You got to be 3-1 on the yes side. But I think you're right. I think that this issue is just different.
I think if the
2-1, it's 6. What if it's 6-3? What happens?
I think it probably passes. I think that's enough to get it to pass, because I think there's an inclination.
I'm with you, but do you think we're seeing what we want to see?
No, I think it passes very closely. I mean,
anytime I'm seeing something I want to agree with, I'm always my German skepticism comes out.
I think if it's 6-3, it probably squeaks by and passes. I think if it's 15-3, it probably fails. I think that
Yeah.
somewhere in that range, I don't know where the number is, you can't get over the hump. And it's because it's a unique issue.
Yeah.
Every other issue we would talk about that would be on the ballot would be completely different analysis than this
And
particular
I think
issue.
the lack of a national, U.S. Senate race, a governor's race, I
Yeah,
think
that's
going to
the
help
only-
pro-life folks. Because
Absolutely.
I think you do have some folks on the pro-choice side. And it's just frankly harder to vote in St. Louis, in Kansas City. It is you commit a chunk of your day. At Twin Springs Church in West Butler County, you might have to wait 20 minutes.
Well,
And people are pissed when they do.
Yeah.
But in
But-
St. Louis, it's hard to vote.
Well, and there was flooding and a power outage the last election. You actually couldn't.
Yeah.
You couldn't use it. It was very difficult to actually vote in St. Louis.
So,
But
Your-
issue measures, and this is the first time off the top of my head I can remember where the issue measure is really the only thing on the ballot. I mean, there's congressional races and
The other
and
ballot
there's-
issues might have.
You'll have two
impacted.
state Senate races, and in places that probably would be marginally pro-choice. I think
Probably.
Lee Summit maybe more than the city of Springfield, but still, you'll have two places there that'll drive turnout. Other than that,
The other ballot.
there's not
issues-
a lot of November to vote for.
But the other ballot issues might.
There you
have
go.
turned. That might be.
Let's
what-
get to that.
Yeah.
I think the lower the turnout, though, the better for the pro-life folks.
absolutely they're more motivated
Yeah.
voters.
I think the more turnout, they get a little nervous.
Pro-choice vote, there's a chunk of pro-choice vote that is, for
both.
lack of a better term, they're casual voters.
Sure.
And you couldn't have done it better than putting it on a presidential election race because the casual voters all show up for this. This November will be, November 26th, will be not a casual voter election.
Yeah. There's really no bait on that hook to draw you
It'll be
in.
turnout driven.
Let's talk about Prop A. I'll fully say I think Prop A is one of the worst pieces of public policy I've ever seen. Good Lord, but the government can't even stay open, and now they want the government to run your business. It had all sorts of stuff. It was essentially trying to drive Missouri businesses out of the state. Now, they did have some compromise in the Senate, but they ended up overturning Prop A because it was a statutory change.
Correct.
I have since we were on this show last, I asked public what's happening, what's behind the scenes there, and some folks reached out and told me yes, they've got their petition submitted, they're putting their coalition together again, the same one that passed it the first time. Their intention is to get it on the ballot. My assumption is the folks I talked to are confident they've got the money, and essentially it's a fundraising game, right, to get something on the ballot. My gut, I've never seen something that has a minimum wage increase fail.
I think that's right. I can't think of one that's ever.
And I'm not sure that's not true almost across the country.
Yeah, minimum wage increases are inherently popular for a lot of reasons.
Now, see, that is where it would be interesting. Are you on that case?
I'm
or
not-
will you be?
Well, there is no case.
But if okay, good.
Let's,
See,
let's worry about that case when that case comes.
we went from Clean Missouri, where it's egregiously put together stuff. We go to Amendment 3, where it's different things smushed together. But now, when you're starting talking about workers' issues, Aaron, I mean, minimum wage and sick leave, they ain't maybe brothers, but they're cousins. That now you're getting closer. That's a close. If you're going to do a multiple subject thing, like this is multiple subjects in my, whether it's legally it is. If we sit on a fence post in Cedar County, this is different topics, but those topics are much closer together than this other stuff we've been discussing.
Yeah, I mean, it's also just like inherently a difficult issue because there's no funded opposition to it that's ever been organized.
Mark,
and
you and
even
I
if
have
they-
talked about this.
And even if they were, what would you say? Like businesses against workers paying?
Well, don't be a socialist.
Well, yeah, I agree. There is a line of messaging there that might work, but the things that coalition have going for them is that inflation is at an all-time high, wages don't keep up, and healthcare is rising, if not going to get completely out of control. And so
The same
you know,
people
you
that
have all
screwed your
these
health care up are now telling you, oh, make somebody else pay for it. It's the same Obamacare people coming in.
Yep.
Well, we'll get into that.
I'm just saying, I thought Obamacare was going to fix things. It's made nothing better.
It was
Did-
a bad,
did
it's
I
a
miss
terrible
the-
program
wait.
to start with.
Did I
really
miss-
is.
hold
It's a
on.
terrible program
I
to
will
start
have to.
with.
We're gonna have to get into this issue at some point. But did I miss the part where my payroll taxes went down on Medicaid? Do I get a tax just because you decide to cut eligibility or the federal government share? that would be a tax cut if you actually took it out of my payroll taxes, but you're actually just moving it around and going to make everybody's premiums go up. So that's a different. We can get to that topic.
At some point,
it's a shell game.
You got more people that want charity than you have charity to give them, and I think that's the problem with Medicaid is. Medicaid is charity for folks that are poor, bad off, right?
So then everybody should see a dip in their payroll taxes, right?
You're never going to see a dip in your payroll taxes.
Exactly. So it's not.
Because you've got Social Security and Medicare are the taxes.
Yeah.
The Medicaid's the surcharge that's on there, and you only pay that if you're in a certain income bracket and you have certain types of income that falls into that.
You only
bracket.
pay it if you're never going to get to use it.
You're not.
That's Medicaid. Medicare.
Yeah.
They didn't touch Medicare. They didn't touch Social Security. Your payroll taxes are for that. They're not going to go down. The thing I think I would beg to differ with Aaron on is, inflation's actually quite low right now. It was very high under Joe Biden. I mean, that was record inflation by anybody's definition. It is not now. Inflation's better. I think there's some concerns about the economy.
Donald Trump did the one thing you have to do. He brought gas prices down.
The issue is minimum wage is a winner. It's always a winner.
Yeah.
The sick leave side is really bad, and it's really bad for businesses. It'll be really bad for employees, and I think that's a harder message to explain, but I think it's a message that can be explained. It is a multiple subject issue. We argued it in the Supreme Court after the initial ballot measure went through, and the court said, we're not the venue for that at this point. You have to start over in the circuit court, and at that point, the legislative fix became a much easier option. I think there's a meritorious claim that this is multiple subjects because minimum wage and mandatory sick leave are very different.
Well, how can you say trans folks and abortion are the same? I mean, to me, those are further apart than those two. I agree with you.
I can admit
they're separate subjects.
I mean, they have to do with gender, and they have to do with reproductive. What's the term that the left uses? Reproductive health. I mean, if you're having
that is kind of funny.
If you're having a sex change, you're changing your reproductive health one way or another for sure, and so that's their term, not mine.
When you walk into court though, and they let gerrymandering and ethics reform be on the same thing, do you go in there thinking, man, because you've argued in front of the Supreme Court and the appellate courts and every judge around here 20 times. When you walk into the room and you're like, these are the same jokers that let ethics reform and gerrymandering come together, they're not going to kick this out.
You have different judges.
Okay.
You have times that change.
Yeah.
I mean, you use the U.S. Supreme Court because it's the easiest example. I mean, they're going back and revisiting rulings that are some quite old and some that are more recent. And the reason they're doing that is the judges have changed, society's changed, the law itself in different areas has changed.
I got a question for you on that. Roe versus Wade, Aaron, overturned. Will there be more abortions in the United States of America or less with Roe versus Wade being overturned?
Will there be more?
More or less abortions? I'll bet you a beer there's going to be more.
I mean, I think probably. It's a hard question to answer because in states with bans, you have, I think you have women that travel out of state or do have other ways that they,
I'd be willing to bet you 5 years after that ruling, you have more abortions.
I agree.
Than less.
Yeah, I agree.
And I understand what they were trying to do, and good for them, but I think there'll be more.
And I think the abortion industry understands that and has, taken advantage of that.
Yeah.
And they push it much harder.
But back to some of what you all were talking about, I think when I was listening to Marc, he's right, but we've punted, the legislature has just punted so many of these big issues to be worked out.
Well, they didn't punt abortion, they just banned it.
Well, but like we kind of talked about on some of the other shows, there's no substantive way to come to a compromise legislatively anymore.
The people's elected representatives have set a minimum wage. Well, they haven't. The voters have.
Back to the minimum wage. I think we would have gotten there. I think that Senator Bernskoetter was very close to find it, and so and then we just give up, and then we find ourselves in running expensive ballot campaigns again.
But look, had the legislature, I'm convinced, had the legislature left minimum wage in there. I mean, left it in the law, not repealed it. Left minimum wage in with whatever the number was with the inflation, just left it as is. and only repealed the sick leave portion, which I think everybody consensus that's looked at it says is a badly written, bad law. If they'd only done that, you'd still have the ballot measure. It would just have a higher minimum wage
yep.
because they know that's what they have to do to pass it. So instead of being $16.25 an hour, it would be $20 an hour or $18.25 an hour because they have to have the ballot candy. That's the ticket to passing it.
I agree with you. When you say they gave up, I think there's some truth to that. But now it appears as though essentially Prop A will just be reshuffled into a constitutional amendment. I think it passes. Because what I've watched before is the business community runs to the legislature and says, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. And they do it. And then the folks that did it in the first place put it right back on the ballot. And then the business community doesn't pony up with money to fight it. And they end up winning. And the legislature gets pulled. And usually, I think this is going to be whatever the last deal was in the room, right? Between Cindy and Doug and Bernscatter and everyone. Sorry, 3D Doug, not you, Flat Doug. Whatever that last offer that Doug Beck made, I bet you is going to be more business favorable than what ultimately passes.
That's probably true, although I question whether they'll get the signatures and get on the ballot. I mean,
Okay.
we're
There's
now
a lot of competing interests for this ballot now.
we're now in the middle of October. The weather's going to start getting bad in a month.
City folks sign stuff, though.
But you have to find people to sign them. And when the
Like
weather's
city
bad,
people just
when the
sign
weather's
anything.
bad, when it's cold, it's harder to get signatures. Going door to door is incredibly inefficient. You have to have crowds. You have to have events. It's a year where there's not as many crowds, not as many events. And so if you're going to try to do a spring collection when the weather's good and kids are out and there's events going on, baseball games start back up. God help us with the Cardinals.
Jesus.
Ultimately, you're talking about $6, $8, $10 million to get those signatures.
Oh, it's at least 6 now. I think it's 6 if everything goes right.
It's
for you.
6 if you start early.
So let's say these folks get this together and it's going to be on the ballot. How does somebody get a hold of Marc Ellinger to represent them? I have people ask for your number, during like candidates and folks that need to hire an attorney, get some advice. How do folks reach out to you? How does that process work?
It's interesting because a lot of times it's referral.
Yeah.
It's other lawyers that get asked, that represent somebody, and they get asked, hey, we got a problem with this, we got a problem with that, who do you know? Don't really get the cold call. That doesn't happen very often. It happens once in a while. It's interesting. My dad was a country lawyer, and everything was based on the cold call. People calling in saying, hey, I need this, or hey, I need that, and there wasn't advertising back then, so it was the yellow pages. But nowadays, I think our business model is pretty much referral based.
And then you do business. You're not a country lawyer.
Yeah, and then you do good work for somebody, and they refer you to their friends or to their businesses, and you end up kind of building, what's effectively, for lack of a better term, like a niche type of practice. I mean, I got into.
Stephanie are also very high-profile people in the state capitol. You had a radio show. She's on a radio show every day. You're both very good at doing things like this. You're pretty accessible to the media. Those things have to help, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in the political world, that doesn't hurt at all because, if you're going to represent candidates or do things involving ballot measures, that certainly helps.
It's a circle of people.
Yeah.
All right, so give me the percentage. Does this get on the ballot? Yes or no?
I'll say no.
How confident are you?
60-40, confident.
What do you think? Does it get on the ballot?
So I think where they're going to put the priority is on the redistricting. So I think it just depends on how much resources that effort takes to do that referendum.
I go
And they're pretty
50-50.
close.
If it gets on the ballot, I would say 70-30 passes. Not it won't pass with 70, but I would say the likelihood is it passes.
I think if it gets on the ballot, it's very difficult to beat. I would agree.
Yeah, agreed.
So we all think abortion's a toss-up. I still think if I had the most money and I'm wanting to know, I like my chances. Let's move into the next thing. But first, I want to talk about the folks up in the great Northwest Center, Hageman used to say, watching this on United Fiber. We're very glad for their sponsorship. Also, the Courtyard by Marriott. Listen, Missouri, can I talk to you for a second? Don't text me in January wanting your rooms. Book them now. If you don't book them now, I can't help you. I mean, honestly, when people text me all the time, hey, the courtyard's booked, can you get me in? And sometimes Randolph can. For the most part, that's not going to happen. And then we're talking about all this money coming into Missouri. There's one thing that comes to this state, it doesn't ever leave. It's the folks at Mocan Trade. It's all grown, tested, stocked, supplied. Everything is so Missouri you can't imagine. It's like the Kit Bond Bridge. There ain't nothing more Missouri than the products from the Mocan Trade members. It is an agricultural product that never leaves this state. Speaking of an issue that's all about this state, redistricting. All right, are you on that one?
I have some involvement with redistricting.
Okay, so I get the argument. Aaron doesn't like the argument. And then Vogel came in here one day and blew this map out and was like, look at this, Aaron. Maybe it said, look at this, Aaron.
Yeah.
And that map is ridiculous. The new Missouri map, it's not probably, if you were getting rid of Cory Bush, great. But you're not. You're not getting rid of a true statewide embarrassment. You're getting rid of a very distinguished man who is beloved in his community and I think has done a good job. But still, I get the argument, right? That's the argument. The best argument to do what they did was this.
I mean, I think that's one. I think that's the easiest pictorial argument.
Aaron,
of it.
are you
It's
ready
like
to
the
admit you were
cartoon
wrong?
version.
No, I've already told you that there's no reason to take ideas from Cubs fans. That's been
We could
that's
pull
been
the
my-
Massachusetts map out or the New York map.
Isn't that kind of like straggly thing there, mostly Cardinals fans?
That might
so-
be
Good
true.
point.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, the Democrats started this. They started this gerrymandering thing. They were egregious about
They
it.
took it to a high level.
They were egregious about it. And Illinois is a great example. There are lots of other examples. There are states, Maryland and Massachusetts, that have no Republicans. I mean, they've been redistricted entirely out. And Maryland in particular was done like partisanly, we're going to get rid of the Republican seats. So they started this. It's illogical that if one side goes to war, you just disarm. If you want to do the redistricting in California and Illinois and Maryland, then don't complain if we want to do it in Missouri and Texas and other states. That's the nature of politics.
That's a good argument.
And look, you look at our state, and we have supermajorities in the House and the Senate. Why wouldn't you redistrict? What's the explanation for not redistricting? And it's simply, well, we've done it. We don't want to change.
I was going to say, Scott's
things.
favorite argument is it wasn't our idea to begin with.
Well, there's two things. The number one thing would be there will be another Democrat president.
One
Maybe
day.
in 3 years.
Yeah,
Maybe in 7. There will be.
absolutely.
It very much helps to have someone respected of that president's party to make phone calls on behalf of the state. Emmanuel Cleaver does do that. I mean, yes, Sam Graves brings home the money, but when the Democrat is president, they'll work together and they will bring home legitimate things that improve the lives of people in the Kansas City area for the most part, but around the state.
How is Maryland or Massachusetts then able to get any federal money under a Republican administration? They have zero Republican representation, and yet they get shoveled money. I mean, for crying out loud, Harvard's located there. They're going to build a new bridge in Baltimore, which is billions of dollars. No hesitancy. So, no, I mean, I think
it's because donors to Republicans live in blue
I was going to
states.
just say, I think
And
the
you know what?
population density.
donors to Democrats live in red states.
Who?
Go to Kansas City, go to St. Louis, and look at who's contributed to national political campaigns. And
Okay.
you'll find tons of Republican
Okay.
donors and tons of Democrat donors.
Okay. Also, I don't think it ever works for us when these Washington people tell us what to do. I think we should build a wall, and it should be on the banks of the Mississippi, and it should face east to keep all those people out of here.
Well, we might need one on the Kansas border facing west to keep the Kansans out, unless we get to
I'm
burn.
trying to
Unless
keep
we
the-
get to burn them again.
the
Mark has,
Washington,
said,
D.C. people out.
Mark has said something I agree
We
with.
need
I'm totally fine
anti-tank
with-
gun or anti-aircraft missiles ready to shoot down anyone from Washington. Just no.
Yeah.
Just we don't want your ideas.
Anyone who's a Jayhawk too.
A state line road
Sure.
wall is fine with me. Totally fine with that.
Yeah, I'm with you, and it's to keep people out.
Look, this is not something.
This
that,
was a Washington thing. We're talking here. This was a Washington thing that was called and said, "Do this."
No, I think this is a measure that
Oh
makes
my
sense.
God! It can make sense, but this was not Missouri's idea. This was Washington's idea.
I will tell you that the concept of whatever they call it, inter-decade redistricting, has been bandied around for a bunch of years. It's not something that's new and unknown.
In all
Did
reality-
Washington lend their support politically to it? Absolutely.
You mean
and why
come up
would
with
they?
the idea and tell them to do
Why
it?
wouldn't they do it? This idea has
it
been
fits
discussed
them.
forever. It's not come up with the idea. This is not something new. This is something new to Missouri because we haven't had it, but it's not something new.
You're really saying that
probably-
Mike
that's
Kehoe
true.
come up with this idea.
It's not what I said. I said that it's not a
What
new
county
idea.
in Missouri was this idea came up in?
Oh, I'm
When
sure
they
it's
said they were gonna do
it's been discussed in Cole County for 20 years, and I've been around. Is the pressure behind it from a political perspective, from a weight perspective, coming out of Washington D.C.?
Sure.
Of course it is.
Yeah. Okay. yeah,
Why
I'm
would
with
we
you.
be surprised at that?
Well, because you were kind of saying the other. You were trying to say it wasn't. I'm like, oh,
No,
come
no.
on now.
The idea has been around for a long period of time. We've talked about it. I've talked about it in groups literally for 15 years.
Let's talk about the legal part of this since we got you here. My gut tells me the court does not bite on this mid-district redistricting is illegal idea.
I agree. It's authorized under the Constitution.
I don't think there's any. There'll be. You'll be in court, right? Probably on this before it's all said and done, likely. But I think you're going to win every argument of the district isn't drawn right, or well, you can't do this in the middle. I'm very skeptical a court says anything that's bad. Now, the part that I do think a circuit judge will not sign off on an uncontiguous map. I've seen a lot of folks.
There isn't one.
Okay, well, the Kansas City precinct, they did it by census squares or whatever. Whoever in Washington designed this with census blocks, is what they said. And so there is an argument. Chuck sat in that chair and said it's right. The funny part is I've only heard people that want the map to go away that believe this. I'd be honest with you, I hate to admit this. I'm not savvy enough with maps and stuff or this to know, but I did have a decent bullshit filter. At first this came out, I was like, okay, look, I get it. You want to see this thrown out, no problem. The Republicans got pretty quiet then. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe there's something to this. Is there something to the fact that the map's not contiguous?
The map is contiguous. So this comes down to a vote, we call them VTDs.
Okay.
I can't even remember what it stands for, Voter Territorial District or something like that. And it's in Jackson County, and the Jackson County Board of Elections is who creates these districts. They're loaded into the census maps. This is not a census block, which is the smallest thing, where they block it down into a very small detail. This is a voting area that's in Jackson County. There are Jackson County numbered 2 separate precincts with the same number. That's
Why
what
would
you got.
Jackson County have 2 precincts with the same number? They're different.
You would have to ask Jackson County that.
So
but
in
maybe
the-
that in and of itself is a reason to change Congress people up there because they're dysfunctional in the whole area.
So walk me through though. This map is laid out in legislative language, right?
Correct.
In the legislative language, does it take that into account?
Yeah, it says in the 4th congressional, I think it's the 4th, yeah, in the 4th congressional district, there's a laundry list of all sorts of different
I think
stuff.
it's voting tabulation. Is it voting
That might be
tabulation?
tabulation.
Because when you do a county, you just
Yeah.
put Cole County's in this district.
Yeah.
But if you split the county, you have
You have to say
go
this,
in
this
and
is here, this
And
is here.
and so the way you split it,
sounds pretty technical.
the way you split it is you use some type of identifier that is accepted by the Census Bureau because that's how you have to portion censuses. And remember, congressional maps have to be exactly even.
Mhm.
They can't be close. They have to be exact. So you go in and you identify precincts, and then you
Precincts
have,
break down into
precincts-
these voting tabulation districts.
and you can even break the voting tabulation districts down farther
My
than the
gut
census
tells me
laws.
this ain't just
So-
people bullshitting though. There is an argument that people are going to make that this is not done properly.
You know,
right? You think it's just total bullshit?
It's not a valid argument. There's no way a court, in my opinion, can look at that, legitimately look at it, look at all the information around it, read the bill, have somebody explain how the bill gets implemented, how it gets loaded into a system, how it gets actually done, and come back and say, yeah, there's a problem. Because there are 2 separate districts with the same
So
number.
who decides which the VTDs in question? Does the Jackson County clerk then decide which one goes to the 4th and which one goes to the 5th, or is the judge going to have to do that?
It's got to be in the legislation, right?
It's in the legislation. It'll be contiguous. You would have to, a clerk would have to come in and say, I'm going to intentionally read this as being non-contiguous, which is nonsensical. And we have the canon law that the court's never supposed to render something that would be nonsensical.
Well, and I don't. Let's hypothetically say you're incorrect, and that something new comes out, and you look at this different. If it was true, it wasn't contiguous. I don't think a circuit judge would sign off on it.
If it was truly not,
if it truly
was
isn't, I don't think
truly
they
not
would.
contiguous, then I
Much
think
less
that there would be a problem.
yeah.
That's simply not the case we have here.
What is going to be their argument that it is?
There's an 811 and there's an 811, and they're in two separate congressional districts.
So
Judge,
in the language,
that's proof.
what does it say? This half of 811 is in one, and this half's in the other.
It
or
just
does
says
say,
it says VTD 811.
It's two, yeah.
And there's no way you could take a look at it and see that there's a problem. If you put it up graphically, you can tell there's not a problem.
Wait,
If
graphically it does look like it looks like there's
No,
two 811s.
It doesn't.
well, maybe the
because
graphic's incorrect,
if
but
you-
I agree. It does look like there's a problem.
That's a created graphic
Yeah.
to do that. If you actually load it into any of the mapping software, if you load in the mapping software, it will show those districts as 100% contiguous. Because the mapping software will read it and say 811 this one, 811 that one. Because it won't want to create a non-contiguous district.
And so you're saying, because I'll be honest with you, the Republicans at first were like, no. Then they got a little quiet. And to me, that was a little bit, okay, maybe somebody's not totally sure. You're saying, as probably the lead Republican lawyer in this state, you're saying there is no problem here. This is just hype and this is a desperation tactic on folks that don't want to see this map.
One more Hail Mary pass.
Because that's
kind
at
of
first, that's what I thought. When you first heard this, you had to think, okay, there's no way, right?
I did, yeah, I did, and then I went.
And then the more it went
read
on, I
and
was like,
it
well,
But if you'll remember when this cycle, when the first discussion about doing mid-session or mid-census redistricting occurred, there was this line of thought that certain people propagated saying, well, you can't do it under the Constitution. It's prohibited. And,
Yeah, I didn't buy that.
but people ran with it. It was in, everywhere. Everybody talked,
But-
just can't do
but
it.
what
Just
you're-
can't do
fine
it.
argument.
But
I just
what
don't
you're
buy it.
saying
But then when you read the Constitution, you're like, wait a second. It doesn't say you can't do it.
Well,
It
you-
just
It says what
doesn't
you
say
can
that.
do.
You've had to be in court before, and you ain't got a great argument, and you're having to maybe gin a little bit up here. And I thought it was that. I thought, okay, they got to say something. This is not a great argument, but I mean, sometimes, right? You've been in court, you're like, damn, this is gonna be a little tough,
So there's an old adage that goes, if the facts are with you, argue the facts.
Yeah.
If the law is with you, argue the law. If neither the facts nor the law are with you, bang on the table and argue.
And this is banging on the table.
This is
and
banging
arguing.
on the table and
Okay.
arguing.
So now let's talk about the other threat. Oh,
of the referendum.
Yeah.
Which is banging on the table and arguing.
Now, I think that
Right? That's
Well, that's the political realm.
the
I mean, that's what
political-
you're supposed
that's
to
what
do.
you
it's
do.
used
Yeah.
the law, I guess,
Yeah.
in a way.
That it,
So I actually think they are going to have the money to put
Yeah.
this in.
that's what I said.
I think the
resources
signature
are
money
gonna
is
go
there.
towards there.
I think they get the signatures. It's a low stand. It's like 106 compared to what, 3 something.
Because it's a referendum.
It's
Three
the
hundred
same.
something.
It's the same
statute.
standard as for a statutory
yeah.
initiative.
Okay, so
So-
they've said it's about
It's the
106.
people's
right?
referendum. Yeah.
It's 100.
This is doable, right?
It's 106,000 is the smallest number you can do, assuming they're all valid, which means you need
300.
250,000 signatures.
Is that about what it
200,000
is?
signatures. It's roughly, I'd call it 2 to 1. as your
Stephanie's
safety
told me
marshal.
before she's actually looked through these things
Oh, I have too.
and checked
Yeah.
them line by line.
Me too.
Boy, that's gotta suck.
It's.
You gotta
Well,
bill a
sports
lot
betting-
for that.
But
We
wait till you
spent
try,
8
wait till you try to
hours
do
of
that like a week before you have to try it.
Yeah, that would suck. Ugh. Okay.
So will they get the signatures? Maybe, maybe not.
Okay, I'm with you on the Prop A thing.
I think
50-50, 60-40. I think it's 70-30 they're going to get the signatures
I
on
would
this.
tend to agree with you. It's much more likely than not, because they got to jump. They seem to be organized. They have money. It's the right time of year to circulate.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to submit by December 12th, I believe. And, that means you get football games, you get high
And
school
I've
football,
seen them out
college
doing it.
football.
I've been asked for my signature.
You got the
I think
street
it was on
markets, you got all that
Homecoming.
stuff.
Yeah.
Parades.
And assuming they get enough signatures, valid signatures, and there'll be litigation.
That's usually meant for me when I'm talking,
The tie. Ooh. Wait.
Assuming they get the signatures and they have enough valid signatures, and then there will be very likely some litigation will occur. That's become part of the process now. I mean that would stop the measure from going into
So then it
effect
stops it
until
going
there's
into
an
effect.
election.
So could you put on in April?
Put on any election, I think. The governor has the authority to call
If I'm the
elections.
governor, though, April, I'm going to lose in April. Right? I mean, that
I
would
don't
be
know.
not very appealing to me.
I don't know.
So if you put it on in August, would it go into effect for the November elections?
If it goes on in August, it would become effective immediately, and then we'd have to figure out: do you rechange the districts that you vote in? Do you not? That's an unknown
here's
question.
the
I will tell you,
damnedest
in
thing,
other states that have had court-ordered redistricting, that has been relatively late in the process, depending upon when certain time things are hit, they have ordered new districts used closer to elections than you would do it through a legislative process where you have to put the law into effect in advance.
December 12th, they turn these in. I have no doubt Denny Haas is going to search every little way to get rid of every signature. But let's assume these guys are pros. They're professionals doing this. They get it done, right? The law stops. So does filing reopen? Here's my question. Because
filing wouldn't be
I know
open.
a guy that's going to have to call you. His name's Curtis Gregory.
Filing
He's the
wouldn't
guy
wouldn't be
everybody
open.
wants. Curtis Gregory's the person everyone wants to run for that seat. He would win. He would beat any Democrat. He is the type of guy you'd want in Congress. Now, whether he wants to sign up for that, God, I can't imagine. But he's in a terrible position right now, because do you file for that in the 5th, even though it could be voted in August? I mean, it puts people in an awful spot.
So there's congressional races are weird. You don't have to live in a congressional district to run in it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think that there's a decent shot that the legislator's map would be upheld by the voters in the long run,
I don't want to ask you. You may be advising him before long, so I don't want to get
you
too
can
close to
you can
home,
file in the 5th district even though you don't live in it. You
But I
can
don't
file to
think-
run against Emmanuel Cleaver in the existing 5th district.
I feel like that's not the type of thing Curtis Gregory does.
Well, I think Curtis is a great guy.
The
and I
reason
think
that
very
everybody wants him
highly
to
of
run is he doesn't want to do something squirrely
Right.
like that.
So filing opens the end of February. It closes the end of March.
I don't want to put it too close to home, because my assumption is you'll be advising him on the legalities of all these things. But candidate X, right? You say, okay, if you're advising them, just common sense advice, I would assume you tell them wait till the 12th to see if they get the signatures.
Yeah.
But I don't want somebody to get ahead of me.
Yeah.
I noticed no one's announced for this seat.
I
I don't think that's a coincidence.
I mean, I don't see any problem with forming committees and raising money if you want to, because you may want to run for a congressional district in the future. But realize there's a different standard for raising money, and it's federal campaign finance is much more difficult.
Curtis is in Sam's now.
Yes, I think that's correct. Yeah.
And in this do it, he'd be our congressman.
Yeah.
I just think it really puts a strain on good candidates like a Curtis Gregory. You may have some idiot. that
Maybe
just
the
doesn't fit.
maybe the referendum gatherers will realize it puts a strain on too and just drop their referendum.
I think maybe they were hoping you guys would realize it and do the opposite. So you wait till December 12th, right?
Yeah.
And December 12th, you're going to get some feel. You don't want to announce at Christmas. By the new year, you'll know if this is going to be stopped and on the ballot. I don't know. I think if I'm a good candidate like Curtis Gregory with options, that people want Curtis Gregory to run for something higher than the state senate because they believe in him. There is a legitimate groundswell of people that believe in Curtis Gregory. I think, boy, I don't think I waste looking foolish on that referendum.
I think if I was advising somebody, and I'm not advising anybody, so I get to say.
Yeah, I hate to bring, because I'm sure at some point you'll be advising Curtis.
If I was
but don't
advising
wanna
somebody, I would
put you in a bad way.
say wait and see if they get the signatures. If they get the signatures, then you have a much more challenging political calculus to navigate. If they don't get the signatures, then filing opens in February.
Sure.
And that's plenty of time.
easy.
Plenty of time to stand a committee up. Plenty of time to raise money. Federal races.
Well, this is going to be a primary election.
Yeah, exactly.
Really. I mean,
at that point, it becomes a primary, and everybody knows that, and the money will flow in.
so this gets on the ballot, Aaron.
Do I think a
Who
referendum
wins?
gets on the ballot?
I think it gets on the ballot. Who wins?
Oh, I think it'll be overturned if it gets on the ballot.
What do you think?
I think it's more likely than not that it would be overturned in an election.
Why wouldn't Donald Trump fly to Sedalia?
And he might just do that, in which
mean,
case
'cause-
it might pass with flying colors.
I mean, if I'm Donald Trump, this is my idea.
Yeah.
My little nerds that work for me's idea. But it's a good idea for me. I don't want a bunch of subpoenas. So I want this if I'm Trump. Instead of, everybody's going to want your time and need your time all fall, want you to be everywhere. Why wouldn't you pop down in Warrensburg and say, hey, do my map?
He might well do that. You never know. I mean, I think
that changes it to me.
changes
I think
dynamic
I'm with you.
entirely.
I don't think this thing flies at the voters. But now Trump comes to town and makes it about Trump. Different tale.
The other thing I think that can change it is if the Democrats in Congress they start feeling like they've got the majority kind of coming, and they start talking about how they're going to immediately open up investigations. Because I think people
they're going to act
they're
like
not
clowns
saying
again.
it. They're not saying
But
it.
they're going to act like clowns again.
Once they
and
come out and
impeach him
say
and all that
that,
scrolly.
there's a whole different campaign, which is, do you want to go through the agony that we
Aren't
went
you
through
proud
before?
to be a Republican that the Republicans didn't just go impeach Biden?
Yeah, I'm proud to be a Republican.
Aaron, aren't you embarrassed to be a Democrat with the way they treated Trump and impeached him for all this squirrely crap?
I don't think I'm a Democrat. I'm actually a registered independent, just for the record.
Do we register here?
You can now.
Oh, you can.
You can. It's your choice.
But,
I am a
I
registered
don't tell
Republican.
the government shit.
I'm a registered Republican.
I don't want the government knowing anything about
I'm
me.
not registered for either party. So.
Me neither.
but
I'm not
So you're an
I didn't think-
unregistered independent.
No.
You are legal here, right,
no, one
Aaron?
can claim, no one can claim me. I would love to see somebody come for my citizenship. That would be funny because.
Well, I ain't man enough, but Kelton might. You never know about him. Okay.
But to answer your question, I'm not answering it, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I thought.
Well, no,
I think that's the answer right there.
Yeah,
You know what? I don't have a damn bit of pity for Jane Comey or that gal in New York. Good for her. The best way to get some of these prosecutors in line is somebody should go after them like they go after American people. I have no sympathy for her whatsoever.
If you run an election saying the first thing I'm going to do if I get in office is indict somebody else who's a
Shame on the
competitive
people that voted for you,
politician,
then.
shame on the people that voted for you, and you now have opened up a can of worms.
Yes.
That is
I do think-
that is
for her.
truly banana republic level can of worms.
Yes.
I do think if they turn around and do what they did in the last midterm to Trump, they have to fulfill a promise to the American people that they are going to actually do some of the things that they say they're going to do. You have to care about.
Squirrely and idiotic.
If that's the route that they go, we've talked about this on the show before. I've never seen the Democratic Party so lost in a national message, and I think that the shutdown has actually given them an opportunity to rethink how they are talking to the American people about issues. And so if they completely, right now they're talking about healthcare. They should be. People are worried about healthcare, regardless. I mean, if you look at the polling, that's just true. People are worried about costs and they're worried about healthcare. And I think the fight over the subsidies is the right move for them right now. But if they win on that message, and then they go into the midterms and they win, and they turn around and they do what they did last time, I totally agree. That's just I think that
Vance is
messing
weird to
with-
me, but you might elect him if they get the majority. The best thing for the Democrats would be to not have the majority, stay just close. That would be their best politics, I think. They're just going and whining about Trump. Trump's won. He won. They need to walk it off.
Yeah.
And I am proud to have been a Republican when he didn't put Hillary Clinton in jail. I thought she shouldn't have done that. And they didn't put Biden in jail. Of course, he probably you couldn't have put him on trial for anything, but I think that is the worst thing I've seen in my lifetime. And look, Donald Trump drives folks nuts. Folks that are for him and against him. And he is, does he tell the truth? No, and all that. Trump's a flawed person. But what they did to him, trying to put him in jail just because he won an election, was horse shit. And I have no sympathy for the folks he's getting vengeance on.
It's the darkest.
Good for him.
It's the darkest thing in modern American history that I've ever seen. It offends me as a lawyer. The fact that lawyers were leading that charge is actually offensive as a lawyer. I mean, people who tried to defend him in court, literally lawyers who were hired to defend him in court, then were charged with bar offenses for defending him.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all out. It is anti-American. They had this committee on anti-American activities back in the McCarthy era. If you want an example of what's anti-American, go look what the Democrats, these prosecutors and these kind of stealth shadow government people in the national security apparatus did to go after the president. That's anti-American.
And every damn one of them should face the same shit they threw at him, should be tossed right back at them. I have no sympathy for them.
I agree entirely.
Now, at some point, hopefully, if you hit them hard enough, this whole thing needs to stop.
And that's the key.
And I don't think if the Democrats get the majority in Congress, they cannot impeach Trump. I just think they have no self-control.
It is, as somebody said, it is wired into their DNA.
Yeah, I agree with
that.
that.
If you say impeach Trump, they have to raise their hands. They don't know how to not do it.
It will be their first test. Then, if they win the midterms and what you're saying plays out, it'll be the first test between the middle America that won them back the House and the majority, and the more progressive part of their party, which they are constantly fighting with.
I ain't never trust anyone with purple hair in my life.
Well, and find me the middle of America moderate Democrats that are going to win them a majority, because they don't exist.
Mark
They're all progressives and liberals.
We're out of time. Would you come back and talk about IP reform?
Absolutely.
That was like the main one I was building up to, but it was so interesting to hear the rest of these things that we got sidetracked. Would you mind coming back in a few weeks?
I'd love to. It'd be great.
Tomorrow, Aaron, we got Curtis Trent's coming in town.
Oh, great.
Curtis Trent is so smart.
Springfield.
It is fun to just listen. You just like throw a topic up, and he can just like walk you through the history and things. Curtis Gregory is going to be a treat. It's going to be a good time. I have something with Shelby, Missouri, down in New Madrid County. People can go to the website and listen to our history of New Madrid County. They had something, a gift for you, and I've left it at the house. So I'm going to try to, I'm trying to remember this, but we have a gift from New Madrid that somebody gave me to give to you on the show, and I'm going to do it. It's at the house. I forgot. I'm sorry.
I am so flattered because, as I told you, I am now like singing the praises of the Southeast
course.
Missouri.
It's a great part of the state.
All it takes is going there
I feel
once.
like it was hidden from me for so long, and now my eyes are opened.
Yeah. So tomorrow at 11, Curtis Trent, gift for Aaron from New Madrid County. You want to hear about New Madrid County, go to the show in Missouri, listen to the history of New Madrid County. Then Sunday this week in Missouri politics, we're going to St. Louis. We're going to interview some of the union guys in the police force, some of the legislators that passed some of the state takeover legislation, and kind of get a look-see on how it's going 30 days in. I think it is something that truly, if you're watching this in Howell County, St. Louis, stop rolling the crime back just a little bit benefits you in very direct ways. It's not even hypothetical. So I'm going to go over this week and check on them, see how they're doing. So that'll air Sunday morning. Until then, Mark, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
We'll come back and do IP reform, right?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Say the word.
Aaron, I'll see you tomorrow.
Maybe. We'll see.
Okay. And we'll see you tomorrow. We will be back here with Curtis Trent. We'll see if Aaron's gonna still come and be on. 50-50, as some would say. We'll see you then.